In this video, I wanted to share a little bit more about myself and my background, but I didn't really want to talk at you for however many minutes into the camera with just my face to look at. So I decided to mix in some miscellaneous clips of my February happenings along with crafty clips from my studio and regular vloggy style content. Also, in the last week of February, the 26th to be exact, it was my birthday, and because I have experienced another year around the sun, that's why I thought it might be fun to do a chatty and reflective get to know me video where I tell you some of the life changes I made in my 20s and how those experiences led me to the creative path I am on now. Some basic info about me. My name is Michelle and I'm a fiber artist based in Michigan. I'm not originally from here though. I was born in South Korea and moved around a bit with my family when I was younger. So I've lived in Australia, upstate New York, I went to uni in Canada, and now I'm in Michigan. I'm a product designer for my day job, and as far as my shop goes, this will be a third year of running So What Studio and sharing my art with you all. So that's a brief profile of me so far. More to come later, and I hope you enjoy this video. Oh my god, so cute! I like the background that they come with, but I do kind of want to free them of this cardboard prison. Should I? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Hello, a quick disclaimer before I really launch into this yap session that is this whole rest of this video. Everything that I talk about is my personal experience, especially my thoughts around teaching and my struggles that I had in my teaching career. I don't mean any disrespect to educators and teachers out there. In fact, I have the utmost respect for you all because it's something that I couldn't keep up with eventually. And then later I share a little bit about how I left that profession and found something new in tech, and it's like the path that I took and it worked out for me. So it's not a guaranteed recipe for success. I'm just kind of sharing my steps that I took to be where I am today. Yeah, that's all. Strap in, get used to my voice because you're going to be hearing a lot of it. Have fun. My first big girl job was actually teaching high school science. I got a bachelor's in science and then pretty much went straight into getting my master's in teaching when I moved back home to Michigan in 2014. So it's safe to say I don't have a traditional background in design or art. I taught biology and chemistry 9th through 12th grade for 4 years in and around Detroit, and though I would say I was a good teacher and teaching was exactly the experience I needed for a time being, like in my early to mid 20s, you know, gaining confidence, planning and time and money management, setting boundaries and all that good stuff, I eventually got very burnt out from teaching. It was to the point where I only had time to come home, eat dinner, and fall asleep on the couch day after day for several years straight. Like, I was so tired that I didn't have any hobbies. In fact, I actively did not want to engage in anything that required more mental bandwidth. So why the burnout? First of all, I don't think I was ever super passionate about the subjects I was teaching. Science is cool, science is awesome, but I don't think I ever liked it enough to teach it enthusiastically. And if I fooled my students with my feigned enthusiasm, then I should win a bloody Oscar because I was acting. So making lesson plans and grading and setting up labs and taking down labs, classroom management, all those things became little paper cuts. And second was like this big social thing. I was drained all the time. When you're a teacher, you have to be on. You're the woman with a plan in the room, and I lean towards introversion, so partaking in hundreds of interactions a day and making micro decisions throughout the day took an eventual toll on me. Do I regret teaching? No. Like I said, it's exactly what I needed when I had it. It was challenging and humbling and rewarding and, dare I say, fun at times. And most of all, it taught me a lot about myself. But I couldn't really see myself sustaining in an emotionally healthy way in this profession for a long term. When I was ready to end my teaching career, at this point, it's safe to say I was unhappy. And around 2019, somehow I timed it before the lockdown, I was so ready for a change. As I was preparing to close the teaching chapter of my life, I was sniffing around for other possible lines of work, and I was hearing potentially good things about, drum roll, software development. I heard about some self-made software engineers, and especially with remote work on the rise. So I actually started dipping my toes into it by teaching myself how to code, like really basic front-end languages, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, by watching tons of YouTube, taking Udemy courses and stuff. I was able to get a part-time internship gig at a software company. It was a baby junior developer role, and I wasn't making tons of money. Like I say, it was part-time, but that and my husband's income were enough to sustain our life at the time being. But I don't know, I didn't really feel like engineering was 100% fit for me. But it was at this internship where I actually heard about user experience and how people make full-out design careers out of this. So I wanted to steer away from the technical dev side into a more creative product design path. I did a lot of research online and found an online bootcamp and enrolled. I did not want to overthink anything. So the bootcamp I attended was at Design Lab, and it took over about 8 months to complete. It was good, not great. I think with any design bootcamp, you have to treat it as a jumping off point. I mean, let's be realistic. It won't make like your dreams come true, as so many of those bootcamps claim. It does take a bit of luck and dedication to find a job right out of a bootcamp. But I will say the course did help me build a pretty boilerplate design portfolio with student projects, so that was enough for me to start applying for jobs when I graduated. Got my first corporate UX design job after half a year of searching, but unfortunately I got laid off from that job like 6 months into it because the company downsized. It was super short notice. I pretty much updated my resume and portfolio after like a week of self-pity and started interviewing for jobs again, and then I found the UX design position that I'm at currently with my company. Anyway, that's kind of my winding story from teaching to design. I wanted to keep it realistic but maybe hopeful for some of you who are also looking into changing your path. The decision to open my shop was a very gradual one. I think I always knew I had ideas and creations to share with the world, and that I would love to sell my handmade items somehow, even if it was on a small scale. So I had made up my mind about this, but the time it took me to muster up the courage to launch a shop and continue sharing my art and creations took a little while. So like in 2020, at the height of the pandemic lockdown, I was well into remote work by now and started to feel better. Like I was healing from teacher burnout and had some time and energy back. Started learning punch needle for the first time, embroidery, sewing felt pieces, crocheting a little bit, just different forms of fiber art. So after a long hiatus, I began posting my creations on Instagram and then eventually on TikTok later in the year. I was having lots of fun making things and sharing them, but I still had some barriers in my mind and some struggles with like what it means to be an artist and a maker and a creative, and like if I could even call myself that, which I know is silly. If I had to boil it down to a few points, the first one would be that I didn't feel unique enough, which was a hindrance that I had to unpack eventually. And second was slaying the dragon of perfectionism, which I know a lot of us are familiar with. Back to my first point of like not feeling outstanding or spectacular enough. This is something that I heard that helped me kind of clear this hurdle, and I wish I could remember who said it so I could credit them. Basically, they were saying how the Oreo cookie is not the only chocolate cookie that's beloved by people in the world. Like there are other chocolate cookies that come in all sorts of forms that people very much love. And it sounds simple, but it did help me because like for a time being when I was making stuff again, I was obsessed with this idea of originality and having my creations and art being completely original. In the early days, I was thinking like, what is the fucking point of making my art when there's already incredible yarn art and felt art out there? Like, why do I deserve to carve out a place for myself on the internet and take up space when things already exist? And I know it sounds mean to myself and like a little silly, but I'm just like keeping it real with you guys. This was my philosophical snag, and it would actually prevent me from making stuff sometimes, to be honest. But with time, I realized that like Even the greatest artists out there that we admire, they created things by standing on the shoulders of giants that came before them, and then more before them, and so on. So really, on God's green earth, like, nothing is completely new under the sun. I mean, like, not that we should be blatantly copying each other, but if you keep experimenting and like trusting your process, you will be able to create something that's uniquely yours, but it will be weaved out of layers of borrowed inspiration. Everything has been done before, that's true, but it hasn't been done like by me, by you, by us, like as creators. So if you don't share your gifts with your authentic touch, then who knows, you could be robbing us of an experience who could benefit from your gift, right? Like I said, I initially didn't know that when I set out on my fiber art journey, and I had to accept that if I wanted to press on as a creator and keep sharing, even from a place of like self-validation. And another way in which perfectionism fueled my fears around like launching my shop was very like emotional. I would always think my stuff looks so amateur and unrefined, in my opinion. And I do look back at my stuff and I cringe a teeny bit because they weren't as neat or focused, and I was experimenting with different media and my style. But if I had never made, shared, and posted those pieces, I would not have been as motivated to grow from that point. And I know my craft and handiwork and like stitching skills and my design mind for my fiber art products, they've all grown heaps from that beginning point. So you can be perceived, seen, trying. That's actually inspiring to people. Growth is inspiring, so don't feel like you have to have your creations be perfect before you start promoting yourself as an artist and like aspiring business owner. I think confidence comes later as you collect small artifacts of like evidence of your growth. So that mindset kind of locked me in. I just was like, fuck it, now is a time to start collecting these little pieces to witness my own growth. Like thinking, if not now, when? In my next life? I don't think so. We don't get another one. So don't wait until the end to share your ideas. I think, not to get too spiritual, but I think our ideas follow us and chase us in this lifetime for a reason. I'm not saying that you will be punished if you don't pursue them, but it's really ultimately up to you to crack it open and see how good it could become when you actualize them. So with that all being said, I did end up opening So What Studio, obviously, but it wasn't until January 2021. It basically took like a year and a half and then some to muster up the courage to do it. But that's okay. Like I told you guys, I was gaining some new perspectives at this time because I hadn't really shared much of myself or what I make on social media before that point. As silly as my creations look and are, it does feel very vulnerable sharing them with you guys sometimes. But since then, I think I've gotten quite good, or at least better at just shrugging and moving on and saying, so what? So what? When a particular post doesn't do as well, because I just don't have control over the algorithm or how people will react to what I share. But I do know that I ultimately have worth outside what I make. And I trust that the pool of ideas that I draw from is not finite. I can go back to that well again and again. I can't explain it. Maybe some of you can put it better in words. Like when I'm executing a creative idea, I'm in the flow state, right? Everything is honed in on making that thing, and then I share it with the world. But emotionally, I've already moved on. I'm on to the next thing. Is that a good thing? I think it's helped me, like I said, not get too sad when when a post's performance is not within the 100% of my control. Anyway, I know you guys didn't ask for advice, but maybe if you're on the cusp of a change in your life and you're about to make a big swing and you're too scared to do it, I think you should do it anyway. Because that's what I did, and I realized the only thing that defined my life for a while was just fear and not doing things. It was just this constant string of inaction. And then I realized, because I've just pushed through the fear and did it anyway, there were at least 1 or 2 good things that were on the other side of that petrifying fear. We as humans are much more resilient than we think. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Leave a comment, let me know what you're up to. If you're also doing like a creative project, I would love to read all about it and reply to you. In the next video, hopefully I'll have new things to yap about. I'm thinking of maybe cosifying my studio even more by installing like a book nook, like a little home library, and maybe some thoughts I've had about my shop and like the direction I want to take it. I've had some thoughts, I've had some ideas, and I would like you to weigh in, so stay tuned. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye!